about to learn right now about hospice, and as I mentioned last month, we went through this. You can never bring hospice into this picture too early. And it helps remarkably, not only with the person who is ill, but with the family, in sort of walking them through what to expect next. We're going to have that information now from Teresa Quance from Alive Hospice. Teresa.
Thank you. My name is Teresa Quance, and I'm a social worker for Alive Hospice. I want to share briefly how not making your own decisions can impact end-of-life family dynamics, as I have observed. It's better to make directives and decisions that are right for you, and no one here is trying to tell you what decision that you should make. I understand we may not know what decisions we want to make under every medical circumstance, but most of us know, or we at least have an idea about our threshold for what quality of life is for us. In my position, I come across family issues when individuals have made decisions in haste, as well as when people have not made decisions, and when they have made decisions. Those are the better outcomes when people have already made their decisions. But decisions made in an emergency and in haste have the same consequences as those decisions that are made in advance. But if you're making them in haste, in an emergency, when you're under duress, right after you've been given a hospice prognosis, you may not have time to think about the long-term effects of your decisions. I had a recent experience with a patient in her 30s who made a decision in haste during a medical emergency prior to her being admitted to hospice. This patient allowed one of her parents to influence her decision, and she resented it for the rest of her life. As a result, she and her husband kept other information from her parents, and it had a negative impact on their relationship until she died. Even people who are admitted to hospice procrastinate about decisions. You might think that hospice patients would have a little sense of urgency, but that is not always the case. I guess none of us really wants to consider that there might be a time in our lives when we are not able to make our own decisions. Every few weeks I have a patient who wants to execute a power of attorney form or a healthcare agent form, both of which are very easy to do, and especially important these days with unmarried couples, people with second marriages, with children from first marriages, financial stresses, and other unique family circumstances. So it's important to designate someone to speak for you when you cannot speak for yourself in order to avoid family conflict. Frequently, these patients of mine will wait till it's too late. I'll sit down with them right after they're admitted and discuss what they want, and they'll indicate that they want to set these things in motion, but they'll put it off when something else comes up, like fishing. Then something else will come up the next week, like visiting other people out of town, which is perfectly understandable because my patients are trying to live life to the fullest while they're feeling good. And they're on hospice after all, so they're feeling pretty good since we have their symptoms and their pain under control. They're out doing things. But eventually, the patient is no longer able to designate someone because they've waited too long to execute the documents, even though they have talked about it. People can transition in just a few days from being able to make their own decisions and not being able to make their own decisions. And prior planning is particularly important when there's conflict or potential conflict within a family. So I tell my patients, after you decide what you want and you talk about it, you don't have to think about it anymore. That's why we're here today, to encourage people to get the conversation started.